Uh-huh. I just feel like I've been around the block, ripping up fantasy stock, working around the clock. Look at the view from the top. Researching rookies a lot? No, I just be listening to pods. Yeah, one in particular, I'm just a messenger. Let me just pass on the rock. Browning, brunning, pruning, pronouncing ain't what he's doing. What he's doing is not losing, but infusing you with new things. And there's Dennis the Bennett, yeah. The man is a menace, yeah. Building a dynasty, some of the finest things. Promise you, you won't regret it. Sly as a fox, cultured in pop. Give him his props. Here is a thought, here is a box. And you cannot compare them at all, so don't even try. Careful with the news, but when you use a take, I take up Tony Fire. I mean Dyer, because anyone else is a huge mistake. Whoa, fantasy round table, fantasy round table. Yeah. Fantasy round table, come take a look at the crown, baby. Hey, fantasy round table, fantasy round table. Woo. Fantasy round table, come take a look at the crown, baby. Go.
Hello and welcome to a Friday edition of the Fantasy Football Roundtable podcast. And you know what? It's the best Friday of the year so far because it is an NFL season Friday. We had a game that mattered, that was actually kind of fun to watch, that confirmed some of our suspicions about one ex-Florida Gator. And we have a bunch of games that count in just a few days. Dennis was so excited he had to swoon in his house, but Matt is back with me, equally pumped. Yeah. How are you feeling about week one?
I'm excited. It's going to be fun. Excuse me. It would be fun to dive into a full weekend of football. I mean, obviously we have college games going on as we're recording right now. We had last night's game where I unfortunately didn't get to watch the full game yet. I will go back. I mean, I already know the score, so maybe I won't go back really and watch the end of it. But I'm excited. I mean, I feel like you'll understand this, and probably most of us suffering NFL fans will understand this because it feels like not a lot of our teams really win any Super Bowls anymore. I'm excited to see what the Browns are going to do this year. Obviously, last year we had the Deshaun Watson, suspension hanging over, and so we weren't really sure how that season was going to go. Getting a full season of him, I think a really good team. I know we're going to talk a really good game, especially with the fact that Joe Burrow just got paid. So I'm excited to see what my Brownies can do this year, and I'm excited to dive into the first full week of NFL football.
Yes, I too have excitement. We will get to all of our teams down there. Both your team and my team were in what I would have considered games of the first week. I have to be honest, I'm excited the NFL is back. The early morning window is not spectacular. No, the afternoon window is spectacular, and the primetime games all look great. But we will get to it. The early morning window, if you have some chores you're still trying to finish around the house, that might be your time. But you know what?
The Brownies will be playing. That's all that matters.
That's the one quality game that we won't get to. But we did have an actual game last night, although Travis Kelce is still waiting to play a game. He hyperextended his knee. They said they tried to give it a go, and he couldn't give it a go. And you know what, Matt? I bet they wish he would have given it a go because he probably had just as good a performance as Kadarius Toney, who was actually in the game, or Sky Moore, who played a million snaps, apparently. Rashee Rice got that touchdown. I don't know how much to make of that. MVS did MVS things. The usage of running backs was disappointing and infuriating to me. So, Matt, what are your takeaways? The Lions coming away with the 21-20 victory. We'll get to the Lions in a minute, but what about this Chiefs offense?
I mean, I think this is what we should have expected from them. Since they lost Tyreek Hill, if we really go back and look at what they were, they funneled everything to, at the time, really 2 to 3 players. Now, they haven't really funneled anything to a single running back since they lost Kareem Hunt, which was before the Patrick Mahomes era, technically. I believe he played like part of that season with Hunt before he was suspended for the rest of the year and then ended up getting cut and going to the Browns. But most of the time that Kareem Hunt was there, it was the Alex Smith show. Since Patrick Mahomes has been there, it's been the Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce show. And I don't think it's unfair to say that the hodgepodge of wide receivers put together are not as talented as Tyreek Hill. It's going to be the Travis Kelce show. I personally don't think you can trust any of those wide receivers. It's why I didn't have any of them really ranked that highly. I don't know who you can trust. Kadarius Toney's game was so bad he deleted his Twitter account because he was trolling all those Giants fans when he got traded, and then he played so bad last night he couldn't take the criticism. He got out of the kitchen. I think that obviously Mahomes, and I'm sure Kelsey and Reed want Kelsey back as quick as possible. I wouldn't be surprised if he's back in some fashion next week. I mean, the dude has only missed one game in his entire career before last night. So 2 games, besides games that they sat him for reasons of like, we had already wrapped up the division. There was no reason for him to play because of health. He has now missed 2 games in his entire career. I think he's going to be back next week, and we saw clearly the Chiefs need him. I mean, he is their offense with Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, you are right. They've played fast and loose. And I know people said that they didn't have great wide receiver play last year, but there's a big difference in rolling in a consummate professional like Juju Smith-Schuster and having a guy that's been with you for a long time in Mecole Hardman. And just, they've been playing fast and loose for a while, like, wide receivers don't matter. We don't need to pay these guys. We can make anyone work. Well, you know what? Patrick wasn't having fun last night. And, I'm also a little frustrated. I hope the NFL writes up the officials because it was bad enough. Jawan Taylor, they essentially talked about on the broadcast. They had Terry McCauley, their NFL rules analyst, who said not once in the game so far has he come close to complying with lining up on the line. And I swear to God, he had like 75 false starts. There was one highlight that really pissed me off because they're talking about what a fantastic play it is Mahomes is making. And it starts with what I would consider to be a false start, which almost everyone was considering to be a false start. It got to the point where Chris Collinsworth felt that he needed to note that they realized it was happening on every single play in the fourth quarter. Yeah. And you saw basically the tackle arm bar a defensive lineman, and when his hand slipped, very much looked like he face masked him to the ground. And they're like, look at Patrick Mahomes escaping. You know what? If somebody in front of me is face masking all the defenders into the ground, I'm going to escape too. So I hope there's some tighter officiating in future contests.
It's one of those things where you don't want to cry foul because I would really hope the NFL is not doing everything they can, but it seemed, at least last night, like I said, I have not watched the full game, so I don't know everything that happened, but it definitely seemed like there was some home cooking for the Chiefs, the technically Super Bowl contending champions right now, to kind of help them out and possibly help them get a win last night against the what most people consider the lowly Lions. They look pretty good.
Well, like I said, we don't come just to slay the Chiefs, but also to praise the Detroit Lions. I thought David Montgomery looked pretty good. Looked like he's picking up that Jamal Williams role. Amon-Ra St. Brown looked like he was in good form. Jared Goff put kind of that road Jared Goff stigma aside. I know he didn't have a spectacular game, but he was doing a lot with pressure in his face. But there was 2 performances, one that bummed me out and one that made me excited. The one that bummed me out is I had mentioned, I thought Marvin Jones would be a sneaky pickup. He pulled his best Kadarius Toney impression on the other side, except for the Lions were smart enough to kind of start rotating him out and putting in Khalif Raymond and Josh Reynolds. But the one I was impressed with, Sam Laporta. We've talked about rookie tight ends can be hit or miss. You're looking at the box score, 5 receptions, 39 yards. Doesn't look incredible, but I thought that was pretty good for his first game. He looked like he had a pretty solid role.
Yeah, I mean, Laporta was a very good tight end coming out of college. He comes from that vaunted Iowa line. That's one of those colleges that, if you don't pay attention to college football and you're just looking for schools, you're looking at Ohio State wide receivers, Lincoln Riley quarterbacks, Georgia running backs, and then you are looking for Iowa tight ends. And Sam Laporta comes from that. And I think the reason he looked so good is he was one of the more complete tight ends in this class. Not only a very good offensive weapon, but also a very good blocking weapon. He reminds me a lot of, which is funny by the team that he got drafted by, TJ Hawkinson coming out. I'll be curious to see how they use him. Obviously, completely different coaching staff than who drafted Hawkinson and how he kind of fell by the wayside. I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up becoming maybe the second or third option in this offense, because in my opinion, it really is just Amon-Ra, who, again, I thought was phenomenal last night, how he kept finding open windows in that secondary and creating separation. I was actually kind of pleasantly surprised with Josh Reynolds, and I don't know, especially in redraft leagues, how many people have him. He might be worth a roster pickup at this
point.
A
lot of people went my direction went for Marvin
Marvin
Jones. But
Jones?
it
Oh,
certainly
yeah,
looked like
yeah.
Josh Reynolds is the Marvin Jones you're looking for.
Yeah, he looked pretty good. I'll say that while I agree with you on how Sam Laporta looked, I was a little disappointed with Jahmyr Gibbs. Now, maybe that's just because Montgomery got so much run. He had the 74 yards, I think, and a touchdown.
Jahmyr Gibbs' usage is what you
Yeah.
should be disappointed.
Yes. I mean, he had 2 catches for 18 yards and then only 7 rushes. Now, maybe they're trying to work him in slowly. We kind of unfortunately saw them do this with DeAndre Swift. And I kind of feel like, unfortunately, that may be what we're looking at as a role here for Jahmyr Gibbs. And they might use, and it really looks like they use David Montgomery in that Jamal Williams type role. Like, I'm worried about, I don't want to take too much because it's just one game. And
I think it's learning a little bit and learning the Lions style. There was one clip that Collinsworth pulled in particular that I think might explain why they were leaving Montgomery in, especially with it being close. They were showing the bread and butter kind of pulling play. And Gibbs, you see the hole open because they show it from behind. Instead of accelerating into the hole, which he definitely could have done, he tried to stutter and see if he could get to the outside and got stymied. And on what looked to me to be almost an identical play is the one that Montgomery just one-gapped straight into the hole and went into the end zone. And I think at this point in time, especially in a game like that, they just want you to get what you can get and to like fight your way forward and not try to flash too much. And I think, it's game 1. He didn't play a ton in the preseason. They talked about Goff not playing a ton in the preseason, needing to kind of get into rhythm with some of those guys. So I was encouraged by some of the ways they used him. He would have had a wide open touchdown early in the game, I think, if he hadn't fallen down.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing was, not only did he fall down, I think he forgot that it's not college rules anymore. Because in college, it doesn't matter, you fall down, you're down. You're down. And he didn't get up and run where he could have. And I think he kind of forgot about that. And I do think that's part of it too. I mean, you mentioned him missing that hole. In college, you're kind of allowed that a little bit more in maybe second guessing yourself a little bit, where you're not allowed that in the NFL. The seconds are much faster. You have to make those decisions. David Montgomery is a pro. He's always had great vision. It's just a little worrisome for me, again, that he only got 7 carries in game 1. And it's not like it was like a blowout either. It was a close game. I felt like maybe they could have used him more in the passing game and only get 2 receptions. Like I said, I don't want to take too much away because it's only one game, but like for a player that I think a lot of people were drafting fairly early and we all had ranked fairly highly. At least I know I had him. I know it wasn't on the show, but I had him ranked fairly high in my running back rankings. I thought he was going to get some good run.
I started him a few places.
Yeah, so did I. So like,
I started Jerick McKinnon, which was sadder, but
it's a little worrisome that he didn't even get double-digit touches. Like I was at least expecting him to get like 12 to 13 touches a game, whether that's 6 rushes and 6 catches or whatever, and to only get 7 rushes and 2 catches. Again, it's only one game, so I don't want to freak out too much. But if it happens again next week, I might be pressing the panic button already on Jahmyr Gibbs.
Yeah, hopefully they'll get a little bit better. I do think, too, part of the reason they kept Montgomery in is the noise was a factor. They were having trouble. And I think blocking, although Montgomery got trucked by Nick Bolton on one of those plays, too. But I do think that had a little bit to do with it. But hopefully, they don't play the Chiefs every week. Well, game 1 is in the books. But we have 15 more games to go this week, and boy, doesn't that feel good to say. Games that matter. So let's dive into the week 1 preview. We'll start with the early window games, and first on the docket, the Carolina Panthers at the Atlanta Falcons, kind of a big matchup in the NFC South. We have quite a few divisional matchups to start this week 1, which is fascinating. First game for number 1 overall pick, Bryce Young. Are you excited? And more importantly, are you excited for Desmond Ridder?
I am obviously very excited for Desmond Ridder. So he's going to go 1-0. I'm just going to give my pick away right now. I think the Falcons are going to win this game. But I do think it's going to be close. Carolina is a team that I think is going to be really good this year as well. Bryce Young is a gamer. I mean, he just finds ways to win games. Now, it's not looking good, obviously, with DJ Chark out, and I believe Adam Thielen is questionable. So I don't know what his wide receiver core is going to look like, but he didn't really
Come on down, Laviska Shenault.
Yeah, I mean, look, he he didn't really necessarily have that great of a wide receiver core last year in Alabama, and he found a way to kind of piece it together and make plays. I really wish, well, I might have Red Zone on one TV and the Browns on the other. I wish that the Browns weren't playing at the same time, because actually this is a game I probably would tune into. I think it's got a chance to be really good, not only because of what I think Desmond Ridder can do, but obviously, again, what I would like to see from Bryce Young. For the Falcons side with Ridder, yeah, I mean, I am definitely excited to see what he does. I thought he played well in the preseason. I don't think he was fantastic, but I do think he played well. I'll be intrigued to see how they kind of pair him with London and Pitts, and then how they kind of use Bijan, because I believe Cordero Patterson's possibly questionable. So will we see some kind of mix between Bijan and Algier? I'm just excited to see what this Falcons offense looks like, because I think they are, at least for me, the favorites to win the South. I think that they have the overall best team in probably arguably the worst division in football.
Yeah, I'm excited too. I picked the Falcons to be my playoff team, so these are the kind of games you need to win. I'm not as much worried about Bryce Young as the offensive line, but Dennis and I are both picking the Falcons. Sounds like you're picking the Falcons as well.
Yeah.
The best game of the morning window is the Cincinnati Bengals at the Cleveland Browns, the Battle of Ohio, another divisional battle. Is Joe Mixon a top 12 play for you this week?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think so. The Browns defense was still pretty bad against the run last year, and so I expect Mixon to probably have a good game here. I really don't know what to think, because last year, I believe we got a split on these games. There was one like high scoring, really great game, and then the other one was a little bit closer defensive struggle. I think that both teams are going to come out firing on all cylinders in this one, because it's a massive game for both of them. The winner of this likely sitting atop the division already. You get that division win. I think this is arguably has a chance to be the best division in all of football, because I think all four of these teams could win the division, including even Pittsburgh, who I think is probably the worst of the four. But yes, I think Mixon is a top 12 play this week.
On the flip side, we finally get to see Deshaun Watson, his first kickoff game for a season in 3 years. Dennis said he's excited to see Watson if he can shake off the rust. How are you feeling?
The same. I mean, we kind of talked a lot about this last year, that we thought Watson would really have to come out and be like amazing to make the playoffs for the Browns. And they kind of had a push toward the end, but you could see, especially in those first couple of games, a guy who clearly hadn't played football in multiple years. Now he at least got to get all those games under his belt. All the reports was that he was working all offseason with like Amari Cooper, Donovan Peoples-Jones, working with the team. I thought he was, again, okay. I'll be honest, I only watched one of their preseason games. I thought he was okay in that one. It's going to be very interesting to see how this looks, because the Bengals defense has been kind of up and down. They've been very bend, don't break the past 2 years. And I think a lot of that is because of how explosive their offense has been. They can take a little bit more risk on the defensive side, knowing Joe Burrow may help them if they get burned. I think it's going to be a very intriguing game to see what happens with Watson. I think this is going to be more of like a Nick Chubb game personally, but Watson is the player I'll be watching as well in this one, to kind of see what this new look Browns offense can be.
Yeah, I'm starting Chubb with confidence. I'm starting Amari Cooper. Depending on your options, especially as tight end is already looking grim for week 1 with Waller questionable, Andrews questionable, Kelsey out, and Kittle questionable. We haven't even played a game, guys. What the F?
Yeah.
And Njoku might not be a bad play either.
I think you have to start Njoku. I don't think there's any question about it. Unfortunately, you've got him. You're probably starting.
Dennis took the Browns. I am taking the Bengals. You are the tiebreaker.
I'm taking the Browns. No way in hell I'm taking Joe Cool. I love you, Joe, but I'm not taking him.
No, I mean, you'll never be able to go back to Cleveland if you take the Bengals in week 1. I picked the Bengals for the Super Bowl, so I got to stay.
And I picked the Browns to go 17-0 last year, even with Jacoby Brissett quarterback. So,
hindsight. Maybe they went 17-0 against the spread. You never know.
Maybe they probably did. I think they did, actually.
The Jacksonville Jaguars at the Indianapolis Colts, another divisional battle. I'm not thinking this one is going to be quite as much in doubt, but Dennis has come all the way around on the Calvin Ridley train, as you probably noticed from our wide receiver episode. So he said he is starting Calvin Ridley with confidence. Are you?
Nope. I've not changed my stance on that whatsoever. I still need to see it. As I mentioned, we saw the connection Evan Ingram and Christian Kirk had with Trevor Lawrence last year. I just don't think that goes away. I do think the Colts still have a fairly good defense. And so I think when it comes down to it, Trevor Lawrence is going to lean on what he knows. I think they will try and get Ridley involved. But as we just talked about with Watson, it's a guy who hasn't played football in 2 years. Like, I just don't know when the rubber meets the road and they finally get out there for that first NFL game if Ridley's going to have a big one. If he does, I might change my mind and start starting him moving forward. But if you're asking me today, he's on my bench. I can't start him week 1.
I'm starting him everywhere. No guts, no glory. I'm sure I'll feel the same as I did after I started Le'Veon Bell with the Jets, but you know what? Shit happens.
Yeah,
so the big question for the Colts, no Jonathan Taylor, and they haven't really signed anybody of note. So Deion Jackson is there. Evan Hull is there. Zach Moss is now officially listed as questionable, which means he's going in the mix. I think Dennis left us a note. He thought it would be a 50-50 split between Jackson and Hull. But I think a lot of people are surprised Moss could be in the mix. Are you starting anyone out of this backfield?
I'm starting Deion Jackson. He was good last year in place of Jonathan Taylor. It's why I drafted him and I'm only in 2 redraft leagues, but I drafted him late in both of those because I thought he had a chance to possibly play. Taylor's going to be on PUP right now. So I think I know he had one really great game, and I think he actually had one kind of bad one, but still I think Deion Jackson's going to be just fine. I actually think, I'll just say it right now, I think the leading rusher on the team tomorrow, Sunday,
Anthony Richardson.
It's going to be Anthony Richardson.
Yeah.
I think Anthony Richardson's going to have himself a game on Sunday. It's going to be fun to watch. It'll be one of the teams that I'll be kind of paying attention to when they get in the red zone. Would not be surprised if I could see Deion Jackson having like an RB3 day because he gets like a touchdown and some rushing yards, but let's say it right now. I think Anthony Richardson's going to get you 2 rushing touchdowns and a pretty significant amount of rushing yards.
Well, we know he's not going to throw the touchdowns because he's still having trouble remembering what the wide receiver position is, which is why I moved Michael Pittman.
Michael Pittman down there somewhere. Just that's all he's got to do.
Dennis and I are both taking the Jaguars.
I'm taking the Colts. Anthony Richardson, right?
You're either going to have a giant lead after this week, or you're going to be trying to neg us into bad picks for the rest of the season.
Probably.
Next up, finally, a non-divisional matchup, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the Minnesota Vikings. What are you expecting from Baker Mayfield? The Vikings did not have what you call a defense last year. So.
Still trash. I know. I love Baker. I still have his jersey somewhere in this house. Look, I don't think it's unfair to say he did not look good in preseason, like at all. And I think the only reason he's starting is because Kyle Trask is hot trash. So
they were not unironically talking about John Wolford as an option. So.
I wouldn't be surprised to see John Wolford at the end of this game. I don't think, look, you're playing Godwin and Evans because you're hoping and praying, but I think you've got, if this is a super flex league, I'd probably play Tyler Algier over Baker Mayfield because he's got a better chance of outscoring him. Even as bad as Minnesota's defense is, what I think could happen here is Minnesota starts to run away with this because of their offense, and it's going to force Baker into throwing all the time. And even as bad as Minnesota's defense is, they'll get interceptions because it's Baker Mayfield.
Look, you know what? Mike Evans isn't going to get that contract. I expect him to come out with some real John Dutton season 5 energy. Like, I'm here for 1 year. I'm going to do whatever I want to do. So, on the flip side for the Vikings, what do you expect from Alexander Mattison?
If you have him, you're starting him. I don't know that he has a massive day here. I think the Bucs defense will be fine. Mattison, I don't think, in my opinion, has ever been like what people have built him up to be. He had like one good game when Dalvin Cook was injured, and that's it. Like, I think he's just a fine player. I think he'll probably finish as like a low-end RB2, high-end RB3. You're starting him, but I'm not expecting him to like blow anybody away because I do think, again, it's probably going to end up being the Kirk Cousins, Justin Jefferson show, and probably TJ Hawkinson. Like that, those are the 3 I'm really starting. If you want to get spicy, Jordan Addison, I think he could be sneaky this week, but it's really just those 3 that I feel good about.
This is going to be the Myles Gaskin season.
Probably.
Dennis and I are taking the Vikings.
No, I'm kidding. I'm taking the Vikings. I'm taking the Buccaneers.
On a corollary, I've heard, if you're interested, the Bucs have an opening at center. So
No, I've lost a lot of weight actually recently. I don't know if that'd be smart for me. Maybe if they need like a spry punt returner, I'll take a mill just to go out there and get killed on one play. Not with me.
Speaking of getting killed, the Tennessee Titans at the New Orleans Saints in a game that has some curious questions at wide receiver. We will start on the Titans side. How you feeling about Treylon Burks?
I don't think I'm starting him this week because I want to see how that rotation goes. I would expect Hopkins dominates the target share. He just he's done that everywhere he's gone. And while I think they're probably closer in play now because of where Hopkins is at in his career, I still think Hopkins is the better receiver. I would be weary of starting Burks just because I don't know what it's going to look like. If you really want to play him, I don't see a massive argument against it. I'd be fine doing it. Personally, though, I'd be sitting him. I'd only be playing Hopkins and Derrick Henry. I don't know why I just tried to put his name together. Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry are the only two that I would play on the Tennessee offense.
Yeah, I feel the same. The Saints actually have a pretty good defense, including a pretty phenomenal secondary. I think we need to give Treylon Burks a beat. I feel actually the same about the question I'm going to pose to you for the Saints, which is about Michael Thomas. Nobody has held on to Michael Thomas shares as vehemently as me, but I have to see it before I put him in.
Yeah, I mean, maybe didn't he actually play like really well in week 1 last year before he hurt himself again and then went out? So like, maybe
I might miss my opportunity.
Exactly. Maybe you should play him just because this might be your only opportunity. But I would agree with you. If you've got better options, I'm probably sitting him just because.
Let's be honest. How could you not have better options?
Yeah, I mean, what's it really been? 3 years since this dude's done anything of like massive coincidence or
the entire time Tom Brady was in Tampa Bay, he was in shambles because it was that first game of Brady Breeze, that everybody built up that was kind of fun to watch where Thomas got hurt and he's not come back.
At least 3 years of any major consequence in the NFL. Like I know he had the one good game last year, but if you don't have better players,
it was an okay game. It was a good game because we were like, damn, he actually caught the ball.
If you don't have someone better to play than Michael Thomas, DM me on Twitter and we'll talk because you need some help. Because I don't see why you need to be playing unless it's a really deep league. Maybe in that case you do need to play.
Dennis and I are taking the Saints.
As am I.
Next up, a game that on paper could be intriguing. The San Francisco 49ers with newly minted Nick Bosa are going to battle the Pittsburgh Steelers. We'll start with San Francisco. You're starting Christian McCaffrey. Which of the pass catchers do you want to push your chips in on week 1?
I really don't know. I mean, Kittle, if I knew Kittle was playing, I think you have to play him if you know he's going to play because he has that ability to just like win you a week every single week. I'm probably going Debo, but I just don't feel great about it. Ayuk, I think, is going to end up being the guy this year, but I feel like it's hard to start him with any real confidence until we see it. He really started to come on at the end of last year, but this offense is just all over the place. And I think that they're going to have to pass. I actually think this has got a chance to be one of the better games in the window, especially if Pittsburgh kind of comes out and actually plays really well. Both these defenses, I think, can match up with these offenses. So I think this could be kind of a grinded out game. So I'm with you on the McCaffrey part, but I think I'm going Debo. I'd start Brandon Ayuk over Michael Thomas if that helps your guys' decision making at all.
We're not going to use Michael Thomas as the parametric because it's just too sad for me. I'm actually leaning toward Debo. It seemed like in the playoffs, Brock Purdy had good connection with Debo, and when I was watching them play together in the preseason, he was looking for him and he was slinging it to him, even though Debo was going against the number 1 for Denver. Now that we've said that, it would probably be Brandon Ayuk career game, but I don't know. That's what I'm going with. On the flip side, how do you feel about Najee? Top 12 week?
I think so. Obviously, a lot of his upside could come from if Kenny Pickett checks the ball down to him, which we saw Ben Roethlisberger do a lot of in Najee's rookie season. He was hurt a lot last year. They improved that offensive line. I don't know that it's top 12. I definitely think he'll finish top 15 because that San Francisco defensive just defense in general is very good. I was going to say defensive line. I feel like I'm shorting their entire
Plus, I
team.
mean, he's got the god Jalen Warren behind him.
Yeah, I mean, I know a lot of people are Jalen Warren. I'm particularly not. But I think that Najee will be fine. I would be surprised, actually, if he finishes top 12. Again, I think this is going to be a really close game between the two of them.
Dennis continues to copy my picks. He took the 49ers as well, and so did I.
I think I'm going to take him, but I am really torn on this one. I just don't think Kenny Pickett hasn't. It's crazy to say the first-round pick quarterback doesn't have enough to beat the Mr. Irrelevant quarterback, but I think the 49ers are a tad bit better team.
Yeah, I don't know if it's so much man-on-man quarterback as the teams around them.
Yeah.
Next up,
I want to talk about this game.
This is not the game of the week. The Arizona Cardinals, have they made a decision? Josh Dobbs their starter? I kind of lost track. It hurt my head.
Yeah, he started. Yep.
At the Washington Commanders. So aside from James Conner, is there any Cardinal that you would deign to play?
I think you have to start Marquise Hollywood Brown because all it takes is a play to break it, and I think that they will scheme things to him. Outside of him, no. I'm not starting Dulcich. I'm not starting Rondale Moore. I don't even honestly feel great about starting James Conner. I just think you have to because he's a starting running back in the league. It's him and Hollywood Brown, and that's it.
That's kind of what Dennis said. Do I feel good about starting Conner? No. Yes, there isn't much competition for touches, but the Cards' offense is going to be really bad. Low play volume, negative game scripts. I guess next up, the question is, how are you feeling about Sam Howell, who, thanks to Brock Purdy, isn't really even the most impressive starting quarterback out of that class?
I am actually excited to see Sam Howell. I thought he would be a first-round pick. It seems like a lot of the reason why he didn't was because of this shoulder injury that nobody knew about. I thought he played fairly well in preseason. I'm excited to see him out there. It helps that you're going up against the worst team in the NFL in your first game. So he should build some confidence. He is a guy who can run as well. Like, I think Sam Howell's in for a pretty good game. I'm excited. I hope Terry McLaurin is going to be fully healthy and able to play. I saw he's not listed as questionable, so I'm assuming he's going to be good to go. But I know he was dealing with, I think, the turf toe injury.
Turf toe, yeah. Those kind of things linger. You usually play through them, but
I think you have to start him, but you're probably not feeling great about
Arizona really doesn't have anyone to cover him, so
that's true. I'm excited to see what Sam Howell looks like, though. I think it could be a fun game for him and the Washington Commanders offense.
I am taking the Commanders, so is Dennis.
As am I.
Next up on the docket, the Houston Texans and C.J. Stroud getting to kick off his career at the Baltimore Ravens. How are you feeling about the former Ohio State signal caller?
Not great, Bob. Not great. If I could, I'd probably avoid playing everybody on the Texans team. The Ravens defense has not been what we're used to, but they're still a very good defense. Now they're out. Was it Cashman? And I think who else was it? Jimmy Ward is out as well. So they're going to be missing two pieces on that defense. But look, CJ Stroud didn't necessarily look great in the preseason. I don't love this wide receiver core. Dameon Pierce, I've always kind of thought is meh to begin with. I'm just avoiding everybody on Houston if I can. I think this has a realistic shot of being a blowout.
Do you think Nick Caserio saw the Giants roster and said, "Hold my beer," when he was assembling the wide receiver core for Houston?
I thought he was just trying to see how fast he could get fired, and they have yet to fire him, so I don't know.
Not that fast.
No, clearly not.
On the Ravens side, the Texans were what you might call bad against the run last year. Number 32 in rushing attempts against, number 32 in rushing yards against, and number 31 in rushing touchdowns against. They allowed more than 5 yards per carry to opposing rushers. And you know what? J.K. Dobbins in his 8 games averaged 5.7 yards per carry. I know DeMeco Ryans is working on the defense, but repairing it will be a process. How are you feeling about Dobbins this week?
I think Dobbins has a chance to be a top 5 guy this week. I think he's in for a massive game. I think Lamar is in for a good game. What I'm really intrigued to see with this, and I hope we get to see this passing attack, because that is more, at least in my opinion, what Todd Monken is known for. Again, Baker Mayfield's best year and their best passing year was the year Todd Monken was their offensive coordinator with Odell and Landry. I'm very curious to see how this plays out. Obviously, you're starting Mark Andrews. I don't know if I'd start Bateman or Odell. but I'm very curious to see which one of those gets more targets outside of Mark Andrews.
Mhm.
That's what I'll be paying attention to. But yeah, JK should be.
I just don't think they're going to have to throw, and that's the real
that's
the real problem. It would probably be more interesting to watch the receiver mix if Andrews ends up pulling a Kelsey and can't go. Although you could see Isaiah likely a great game. Dennis and I are taking the Ravens in this one.
As am I.
The final game of the early window is another division rivalry. And you know what? 2 years ago, this would have been having you hype. Not as much this year. It's the Green Bay Packers at the Chicago Bears. Jordan Love doesn't have much experience out there, may not even have Christian Watson on Sunday, and has a banged-up Romeo Doubs. How are you feeling about Love?
Yeah, I mean, last I looked, Christian Watson's out. So, and I think you said Romeo Doubs questionable. So I'm not feeling great about Jordan Love at all, actually, because I don't know who he's going to be passing the ball to. I mean, Jaden Reed had his moments in preseason. Maybe he has a couple big plays, but I think this Bears defense is going to be able to kind of clamp down on them. I'm not expecting a big day. I actually would not be surprised if Aaron Jones ends up having a really big day out of the backfield catching the ball because Jordan Love just has to check down to him. You're muted, Matt.
Of course. I don't totally understand how all of these players are out going into week one. Shouldn't week one be like the one time you can count on it? You are right. Christian Watson has now officially been ruled out. Romeo Doubs is questionable, also with a hamstring injury. So,
yeah, fantasy season is starting off great for all of us.
Part of the reason I've not been as high on Jordan Love this season is I don't know that they've set him up to succeed very well.
No, is that surprising? They didn't set Aaron Rodgers up for what feels like 2 decades to succeed.
I know, but the wide receiving core for Green Bay last year to this year is almost comparable to the F mentality the Chiefs took, except for they don't have a Travis Kelce to just run out there. That's why I thought they were trading for Jonathan Taylor so they could just go back to running the wishbone.
They don't have a Patrick Mahomes either because they let him go to New York. Like, that's the thing. I think at least with Kansas City, you can say, oh, we don't need wide receivers because we have this great quarterback. They don't even have that. They have Jordan Love. No offense, Jordan Love, if you're a fan of the show.
Well, somebody you might be more excited about is Khalil Herbert. Dennis says the Packers gave up the 8th most fantasy points and 7th most rush yards to running backs in 22, and that was with Zadarius Smith, who they don't have any longer. He thinks Herbert is a solid running back too. Do you?
I think so. I am still very intrigued to see how they handle the reps with Donta Foreman there and Roschon Johnson. I don't think we'll see a lot of Roschon. For me, he's more of that pass blocking back, and I don't even know that he needs to do that much because I don't think they want to ask Justin Fields to pass a ton. I still think they're going to use his legs a lot. But I don't think you signed Donta Foreman to the contract.
Except for DJ Moore. I need DJ Moore. I went all in and called him a start this week and said start the publish.
I would love to see Justin Fields pass more because I'd like to see him become a competent quarterback so that he stays in the league. But I feel like in a game like this, they're probably not going to ask him to do much. I actually think both him and Donta Foreman could be starters this week because I would not be surprised if what I feel like Khalil Herbert's going to end up being, unfortunately, is the guy in between the 20s, almost like what DeAndre Swift was for the Lions at times. Yeah, where they're using him this way.
Damian Harris was for the
exactly. If he doesn't end up scoring a big play when they get down in the red zone, I think it's going to be Donta Foreman and Justin Fields, and that could end up hurting Herbert's value. And I love Khalil Herbert. I was one of the people talking about him when he was drafted in the 7th round, 6th round, whatever it was. Like, that's a guy you need to have on your team. I think he's a phenomenal player, but I am worried a little bit about his usage for the Bears. I'm starting him. I'm starting Fields. I'm starting DJ, and I'm starting Foreman. I think he's going to get you some points, even if it's just touchdowns.
How times have changed. Dennis and I are both taking the Bears over the Packers on opening day.
As am I.
Well, we've made it to the late window games, and boy, do we have a pretty exceptional late window slate, and that starts in Mile High, where it could be raining and some lightning delays. for the Raiders at the Broncos, the debut of Sean Payton. But on the Raiders side, Josh Jacobs is back. He missed all of camp. He missed all of preseason. He has been something of a Bronco killer. But all the talk here this week has been about their entire defensive game plan seems squarely aimed at putting him in his place.
Yep.
Do you have any concerns?
Yes. And I will say not really because of the Broncos defense, because the dude is not played.
You're saying Vance Joseph's return to Mile High hasn't inspired you?
No, it is not. No, it's more of the fact of, as you just mentioned, he was not a part of camp. He did nothing in preseason. Again, you're asking a lot of a dude coming practice. Yeah, I'm sure he's been working out and everything, but being in football shape is a lot different than just being in shape. I think Jacobs could go out there and be fine. I'm not even expecting like a high-end RB2 game from him this week. I think he's going to be a little bit limited with his reps. I actually would not be surprised if Sean Payton's able to get this offense turned around. If this kind of this game gets away from the Raiders a little bit, I don't think the Raiders are particularly a very good team. So I am not expecting a massive day from Josh Jacobs. I think you have to start him. And if he gets you a touchdown, he'll end up probably coming through for you. But I do think he's going to be a little bit limited.
Yeah, I had him as a sit this week too. I'm hopeful that Denver's defense, they have made some scheme changes up front, but it's more, I think it's going to take him a while to get in, and especially to get into game shape. On the Broncos side, how do we feel about the receiving situation?
I mean, I feel like you have to start Sutton with Judy's questionable, right? I don't know that he's going to play.
Judy's questionable, but I would be so shocked if he played.
Yeah. So I feel
they
like
only have 4 wide receivers total. So
yeah. I feel like you've got to play Sutton and expect that he's going to be the main guy. I mean, again, it really sucks that Patrick had to go down again. I really thought this would have been a good chance for him to shine some more with Judy out. But for me, it'd probably be Sutton, and that's it. I don't know that I feel comfortable starting anybody else.
My YOLO pick is Marvin Mims, because I actually think he's the one they're going to bomb down the field to. I think Sutton has kind of taken over as a possession receiver, which not to say that isn't important, but Brandon Johnson will probably go on the other side is a possession receiver too. I liked what I saw from Mims, and there's a big part of me, especially if Judy gets ruled inactive, I probably am bombing Marvin Mims in a couple lineups. I am taking the Broncos. I didn't even bother to look at Dennis.
He is as well, and so am I.
Yeah. Okay. Next up, Philadelphia Eagles at the New England Patriots, which, boy, 4 years ago, this would have been a hell of a game. This week, I don't know what to make of this contest. In the same way, I don't know what to make of the Eagles' backfield. Do you have anyone that you would like to start?
Not really. I'm probably starting Swift because I think he's got the best home run ability. I don't really know. I should say that, but then Rashad Penny can probably break one off pretty easily too. So
Gainwell, or
no, don't put Gainwell in there. No. But
Boston Scott.
No, not him either. I think I've started Swift in a couple places because again, while Penny's actually, I take that back. Penny is definitely the better home run threat. DeAndre Swift, at least in my opinion, that includes having Kenneth Gainwell, who caught like a crap ton of passes in college.
I think I already ruined that for us.
Okay, good. A shit ton of passes in college, and we know Boston Scott is a good receiver as well. Stop starting Boston Scott.
Wouldn't it be fitting for Boston Scott to go ham in Boston?
Well, yeah, he probably would. I would feel fine starting either Penny or Swift. I think both could be fine. I think this is going to be a bad game. Like, I think the Eagles are going to just run all over the Patriots.
Yeah, it's hard to tell. I had Swift ranked the highest too, but it's kind of one of those situations where I honestly prefer not to play anyone until we see what a rotation is in a real game, because the preseason gives you all kinds of fake vibes. On the flip side, Juju's there. Apparently his knee is a ticking time bomb, according to one of the reporters, which he denies. But more importantly, I've been kind of hyped about low-key the acquisition of Mike Gesicki, who was 2 years in a row was a tight end 1 before the Dolphins forgot he existed in their new scheme. How do you feel about Gesicki this week?
Nope. I'm not starting anybody on the Patriots. I'm just being honest. This is
What about Ramondre?
No, he's questionable. I don't even know that he's going to play, and he's going up against that Eagles defense. I don't think this is going to be a good game. Maybe
I don't understand why all these guys are missing week 1.
I don't know either, but I really have a feeling this could be like 41-10. Like the Eagles are just, I think they're on that revenge tour after losing that Super Bowl. I just think they're arguably the best team in the NFC. I don't even think that's arguable. I still think they're the best team. I think all three of us have them rated as the top team in the NFC.
Ramondre is questionable because he missed practice due to an illness.
Okay, so he'll probably play. I still don't feel great.
What's more concerning is Matt Corral, who they just acquired, is listed as questionable for a non-injury related issue.
I just if you're starting anybody on the Patriots, you're starting Ramondre. And for me, that's it. Like, I don't trust Mac Daddy to be able to pass against this defense. It's just, I think it's going to be a bad game.
Better games are coming. Wait till they play the Raiders. I am taking the Eagles, and so is Dennis.
Yeah, as am I. Yeah.
Perhaps the game of the late afternoon window is the Miami Dolphins, who had the number 5 overall pick in the 2020 draft, Tua Tagovailoa, at the Los Angeles Chargers, who had the number 6 pick in the 2020 draft, Justin Herbert. I'm going to switch things up, though, for the Dolphins. How do you feel about this backfield?
I'm very intrigued to see what it ends up looking like. I see that Dennis said that he thinks it's going to be Mostert in the lead with Ahmed and Achane sprinkled in. I'm actually going to switch the A's there. I think if Mostert will lead, I think Achane is going to get more than Salvon Ahmed. Achane is the most explosive playmaker on that team, not named Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. I think that Mike McDaniels is going to find ways to have him make plays in this game. I don't know that I would start him, but I think he's going to have a role in this one. But I do expect Mostert's probably going to be the guy who leads the back.
So I had a really depressing running back situation. I was trying to decide between Achane and Zach Moss. Who would you?
Achane, easily. At least he's got a chance to probably score. I don't know that Zach Moss does.
Fortunately, my other running back was Montgomery, who that touchdown at the end, nobody was crying harder than me, except for maybe Dan Campbell. On the flip side, Justin Herbert has a ton of weapons and has a new friend in Kellen Moore. What are you expecting?
A massive week, baby. I mean, look at Dak Prescott. Some of his best games came with Kellen Moore and 2 good wide receivers. Well, Justin Herbert's got 3. And he's also got a really good receiving running back in Austin Eckler. 4 good wide receivers. Who's the 4th? Keenan Allen, Mike Williams. He's okay. He's probably better than Quentin Johnson.
The guy that led the team in targets and receptions last year.
Williams were hurt, but yes, I get what you're saying. I
best
think
ability is availability.
That is true. I think that Herbert's going to have a massive, well, I shouldn't say a massive game. I agree. This could probably actually be the game of the weekend because both these teams are vying for, I think, one of the top spots in the AFC. I am very intrigued to see what this offense looks like with Kellen Moore and Justin Herbert. I don't think it's unfair to say that Kellen Moore is by far the best offensive play caller that Justin Herbert has had in his career. He's got some intriguing weapons. I am really excited to see what Herbert does in this one.
The Chargers can be an enigmatic home team, but Dennis and I are both taking the Chargers.
As am I, baby. Bolt up. Don't want no Dolphin tattoos.
Last game of the afternoon window wasn't looking as spectacular before Cooper Kupp got ruled out, and that is the Los Angeles Rams at the Seattle Seahawks. Dennis said he would be interested in playing Tyler Higbee, thinks it could be a good matchup, but is there any Ram that you want to throw in the lineup?
No. Nope, I'm good. I might have thrown Stetson Bennett in, but he's out because I don't know that Matt Stafford's going to stay healthy all season. Well, I guess I would have started Stafford this week because I think he'll be fine this week. Yeah, no, I don't.
You're
disagree.
Not playing Puka Nakua in a flex position.
Nah. I don't even know that I feel that great about playing Tyler Higbee either. I think Seattle could. This offensive line.
I don't know. I just think this game.
Matt Stafford can't run anywhere. I think this game's going to be over and quick. And I love Sean McVay, but it's not going to be pretty.
On the Seattle side, how are we feeling about the backfield in week 1?
I'm still starting Walker. He's not even listed as questionable. I think you got to start.
Neither of them are. I seem to recall the great panic of the preseason where they were both dead.
Zach Charbonnet is going to start Kenneth Walker. Yeah. I Yeah, I'm starting Walker. I still believe he's the better running back in general than Zach Charbonnet. And if both of them are listed as healthy, I think he's going to get most of the run. I'm sure we'll see both of them, but I feel pretty comfortable starting Walker and expecting him to be like an RB2 for me.
Unfortunately, if you were thinking about starting Kenny McIntosh, he has been officially ruled out.
All that.
Dennis and I are taking the Seahawks.
As am I.
Sunday Night Football features the Dallas Cowboys at the New York Giants.
Why is it always Cowboys Giants on Sunday night, week 1? It's really frustrating. There's other teams that matter.
So it's God intended. They weren't the Sunday night matchup last year, I don't think, because I think the Cowboys played the Thursday night game.
Oh, maybe that's why. They're always in prime time.
How are you feeling about Tony Pollard?
I think he's going to be fine. He's going to be their starting running back. I think they'll have Malik Davis mixing in. But, I mean, if you've got Pollard, you're probably expecting at least a top 15.
I thought Davis got cut. Isn't Dowdle the backup? Yeah, I think Malik Davis got cut and went on the practice squad. I'm pretty sure it's Dowdle and Deuce Vaughn.
Then I really feel good about Tony Pollard. Yeah, I think he's probably at worst. Worst, you're getting a top 15 week. Best, you're probably getting possibly even a top 5. Like, I don't know that he did. Wow. Rico Dowdell. Wow. Oh, yeah. I forgot they got Ronald Jones, who's suspended for 4 games. He's take over that backfield. Just you watch. It's coming for him. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, I think he's going to be fine.
On the flip side, we know Darren Waller is questionable, and the Giants are probably secretly praying that he plays. But are there any Giants receivers you feel the least bit intrigued by?
Not really. Maybe Isaiah Hodgins. I felt like he's probably the best option on there right now, but I don't feel great. Like, I actually think Dallas, if it weren't for Philly, I actually think we might be talking about Dallas as being one of the best teams in the AFC or the NFC. Like, Dallas has got a very
good. If Dallas was in the NFC South, they'd have that division on lock.
Oh yeah, 100%. Like, Dallas is a very good team. I expect Daniel Jones and this offense for the Giants to play well. If I'm starting one, it's probably Hodgins. He's the one I feel the best about, but I don't really feel great about anybody else. I kind of just need to see it at this point.
I don't blame you. I'm not starting any of them. Dennis said that Hodgins, Paris Campbell, and Slayton all have good size and could have moments, but none of them will have a big game. And yet, the New York homer he is, he picked the Giants. I am taking the Cowboys.
As am I.
Mike McCarthy. Monday Night Football is a battle of New York and division rivals. The Buffalo Bills at the New York Jets. We'll start with the Bills. Not a favorable matchup. How do you feel about this backfield for the Bills?
Not great. This is one of those where if I can wait a week to kind of see how they split things, I'm doing that. I expect Damian Harris to get a decent amount of the run. I know they signed Latavius Murray. I really don't think he's anything but a body. But what they do with James Cook is kind of what has me concerned. And I don't know what they're going to end up doing with him. I personally think Damian Harris is the much better running back. And when he's healthy, I think he's shown us that he is a really good running back. But then you also have to worry about having, obviously, one of the best quarterbacks and rushing threats in the league in Josh Allen. I just kind of want to see what this offense looks like right now before I really trust any of them. If I have to start one, I would start Harris as like a flex play, but I wouldn't feel great about it.
Yeah, it's hard to tell. It's not a great matchup either. I actually think this could be one of the lower scoring games of the week because both these teams have pretty good defense, which brings us to the Jets. And, Aaron Rodgers making his big debut. Dennis notes the Bills gave up the 8th most fantasy points to wide receivers. But unlike the Giants, he expects a steady diet of targets to Garrett Wilson, which means he'll be okay. But do you think Rodgers is going to light it up?
I don't. Like 60 yards and a touchdown is great with like 5 catches is great for Garrett Wilson, but that may mean Aaron Rodgers only ends up with like 2-1 and maybe 200 yards. Like, I agree with you. I think this has a chance to be a very close knit game. I don't know that I would start anybody on this team outside of Garrett Wilson because, I don't even know like Breece Hall hasn't been ruled out yet, right?
No, he's questionable, as are both tackles, Dwayne Brown and Mekhi Becton.
I'm not feeling great about having Hall and Dalvin Cook in the backfield trying to do things.
And Abonaconda
Especially
and Michael Carter.
You mentioned having both tackles out. Like, I think if it's a super flex league, I'm fine starting Aaron Rodgers because he does have he's one of those players where he could end up with like 3 touchdowns. You're like, holy crap, I wasn't expecting this. It ends up being a great game. But if I had a choice, I think the only player I'm starting is Garrett Wilson. Maybe Lazard is like a flex play in a deep league because I think in the red zone, Rodgers might go for him. But like the only player I'm wanting to start is Garrett Wilson.
I think it just occurred to me that the NFL has scheduled back-to-back primetime nights in the Meadowlands to start the season because the Giants are home and then the Jets are home.
Good for New York. They deserve it.
Good. Yeah. Such a small, tight-knit community. Dennis is continuing his New York homerism and taking the Jets. I am not. I am taking the Buffalo Bills.
I really don't know which way I want to go on this one, actually. I kind of
go against Nathaniel Hackett.
I kind of want to take the Jets, but I am going I'm going to take the Bills. I trust Daboll. I trust Daboll. Oh no, Daboll's not even there.
He's right. No. That's why you should take the Jets.
I'm still going to take the Jets. I'm still going to take the Bills. Josh Allen, he's my quarterback.
It's Sean McDermott. He's a good coach. No, Ken Dorsey. Sean McDermott. He's been coach of the year.
But what has he done? He's been coach of the year because he's made the Bills relevant again. He's what he is to me? He's that guy who he's not quite as bad as Jeff Fisher because Jeff Fisher was like only winning 5 games a year or whatever it was that he was. But he's that guy I guarantee you the minute Sean McDermott is fired and they bring in an offensive guy like Sean McVay, the Bills are going to go win the Super Bowl, just like the Rams ended up doing a couple of years later with Sean McVay. I like McDermott, but he's too wishy-washy in games. He doesn't make decisions. He doesn't let the offense just go for it. He's too safe. As you in playing Calvin Ridley this week when you shouldn't. Scared money don't make money, Sean McDermott. You got to be the man. Make a call. So I'm taking
I'm taking the Bills.
Oh, why? I mean, I'm taking them, but I don't feel great about it.
Well, that'll bring an end to the preview for week 1. We are swinging our show over to Tuesday evenings starting this week so that we can recap all of the fantasy action, which includes that Monday night football game. So you can be looking for us then. If you have some free time this weekend, please pop on to your favorite streaming device and platform and give us a rating and a review. It really makes Dennis happy, and we love it when Dennis is happy. He's hoping all of his picks hit this week. I'm hoping all but his last couple of picks hit since that's where he decided 2 roads diverged in a forest. And for Dennis and I, apparently it was games involving New York teams. But any other thoughts on week 1?
Just I'm excited to get into it. I'm excited for, what's his name? Steve Hansen or what is it? It's not John.
Oh, the Red Zone. Scott Hansen.
Scott Hansen to just be like 7 hours of straight football and so on and so forth. So I'm ready. I'm ready to watch the Browns start off 1-0 against the Cincy Kitties. I'm ready for it.
Go Broncos. You can't be any worse than last year. That's the kind of unbridled enthusiasm that I'm bringing after 8 years of subpar play.
That's probably going to be my enthusiasm on Tuesday next week after the Browns lose to the Bengals 35-17. And watch that be the exact score, too. Just watch.
Well, enjoy your week 1, and we will